You're listening to The Kylo Show, a podcast about how to keep your love on no matter what and why whole, healthy families are going to save the world. And to have whole, healthy families, you need whole, healthy marriages. But God's design for marriage has been under attack, and it has been for years. It's created a perverted version of what marriage looks like in our culture. Marriage is to imitate our relationship with God. It's an epic adventure that's hardwired into us. So if you're married, single, dating, divorced, this episode is for you. So let's join Danny and Brittany as we talk about the marriage covenant.
Well, hi guys, we are here with the Kylo Show and, digging into some fun things, talking about some good stuff.
The marriage covenant.
Because our goal here is chasing after those whole healthy families. Because we need you to save the world.
Save the world.
That's what we're doing. So yes, we're talking about the marriage covenant, which is amazing and beautiful and wonderful. And we should talk about it.
We should. I mean,
give some light.
Think about it. The garden starts with this marriage of Adam and Eve.
Yep.
And then the revelation of Jesus Christ ends with a wedding feast. You're like marriage, weddings, covenant,
Happy.
Start to finish.
Yes.
Everywhere.
It's important. It is crucial.
It looks like it's important to God.
I think so. I feel like covenant is in there a lot in different ways.
It's everywhere.
And he's talking about it over and over and over again, and yet we're still not getting it.
It's what anchors our society. It's what anchors our culture. Is this idea that we would value, emphasize, protect, perpetuate loving, whole, healthy families.
Yeah.
I mean, that getting back to that is what's going to transform this world, because the disintegration of that is what has led to the craziness that we're living in.
It's true. I think every time that we've talked with the kids about marriage and sex and having all those conversations throughout all the different stages, I feel like Ben and I are always so intentional to talk about really the covenant of marriage. Like that is such a highlighted piece rather than sex and all the different parts of marriage, but it's this covenant and kind of breaking down that this is the biggest and most important promise that you'll ever make with someone.
It always amazes me that so many people, especially young people today, are saying things like, "Well, it's just a piece of paper. Who cares? Whatever. It doesn't matter. I don't really want to get married." It cracks me up when the girls say it. I don't really. No, I don't care. I don't care. But then, anytime a guy proposes to a girl, it's tears and snot and cheers and, oh my gosh, you have touched the core of my being by choosing me. It's like, yeah, it's in there. It's hardwired in there. So culturally, say what you want about marriage, but it is hardwired in there for a man to act like he's ready to commit his life, his resources, his protection, his pursuit to the heart of a woman, that she would trust him with her life, her vulnerability, to raise a family. I mean, it is hardwired into human beings. Say what you want, but I watch it not be true every time I watch some creative proposal.
It's true. And I think I think this is in Ben and I's vows to each other, but that he gets to be the hero in our adventure, and that I am the princess, worth fighting for. And I think that it feels like that's what the covenant's trying to be, is that on display over and over and over again, is that I'm preparing myself for you, and you are fighting to protect yourself for me, and it's just this dance that we're doing back and forth.
And we're both caught up in a great adventure. All this wild at heart, John Eldredge stuff. It's true. I mean, he just nailed it when he wrote that book. But it's really a call to revive humans to this thing that they're so drawn to. I mean, an epic adventure movie is just dripping with this stuff.
Yes.
It's because it touches who we are, regardless of how hard education tries to drill it out of you, no matter how hard society and social media tries to discourage you from it. It is hardwired into human beings to end up happily ever after.
It is. It's like this call and longing desire to be partnered with someone forever and to make as many memories as possible. I mean, like the Disney movie Up, they're children and they're having adventure from the beginning, but their whole life is that they're on this journey together, and every little memory is. And I think, every movie that that's out there, it feels like it's got that wild at heart piece. It's got that princess. I mean, all those fun stories have all those elements to it.
Yeah.
And it's just on display. This is what it's about.
Who doesn't want to look forward to being loved by someone who is amazing and respectable and admirable and pointing that at you and challenging you to rise to who you could be and who you want to be, and a partnership of that, and then raising children in an environment where they will flourish, and they'll go out ahead of you and do even greater things. Who doesn't want to be part of that story?
I don't know.
Yeah,
I think that illustration, I think everyone would say yes to, but I don't know that that's what is the experience that people are hearing.
No, that's part of the propaganda and the anti-family narrative is you can't have that. But we know that just looking, when we look at God, when we look at the Trinity, we know that it's perfect love. It is an eternal bond that they are creating in us to hunger for and long for and to achieve. And that's, I think, is hardly anybody is trumpeting that right now.
Which is, when I think about, like, no one's really trumpeting very loud, like you said, the marriage covenant and how crucial that is and the importance of it. But if you were to look at, like, because that's the die to yourself and serve someone else. That's what.
Yeah, understanding covenant.
Yeah,
is all about dying.
But if you think about, like, sports teams and different stuff like that, there's always like there's no I in team. Well, it's the same kind of idea. We're choosing this over ourselves.
Leave it all in a field, baby.
But it is, like, so praised and talked about in a sports example rather than in a marriage example.
Yeah.
Why is that? That's frustrating.
Brokenness, perversion, lies, deception. Is
there less risk?
Well, once sin rules my relationship, then it's all about me. It's all about me. Everything's about me. What can I get? What didn't I get? What should I have gotten? What how can I get something that isn't really available to me, but I deserve it anyway? Life is all about fear and greed and the manipulation of those two things working together to satisfy me. And you're like, oh, what a bummer. This is the consequences of sin undealt with in our life. Unrepented of sin leads to destructive levels of selfishness.
So do you think a lot of people that maybe choose to get married they didn't repent before they got there?
Well, I think that the valuable part of being in a healthy community
Mm-hmm.
is that other people pay attention to you and can give you feedback. Whereas if you're the expert on your own breath, then you miss it a lot.
Yeah.
You're like, oh, I brushed my teeth Tuesday. We should be good. I don't want to have bad breath, so I don't. Like, well, wrong-o there, chap, because I could smell it while you're driving down the street. I can smell your breath. It's like, wow, you are painful.
Mm.
So being in a community of people that are on the same journey is accountability and it's feedback, and it's painful.
Mm-hmm.
It's painful to hear shocking truth.
Yeah.
Wow, you're experiencing me like that? I had no idea you were experiencing me like that. So yeah, I could tell because you kept doing it. So that's why we're having this hard conversation. And so I think when people talk about, I want community, I want to believe, I want to be life on life, I want to do that, I don't think that's true, because as soon as somebody tells you the truth, you leave. And you didn't adjust to repair the relationship. You left wounded and offended and went and found somebody that would tell you what you wanted to hear.
Yeah. It's just, I think the power of feedback and community, I think that's what Ben and I are always sending young married couples to is, who's your community?
Mm-hmm.
How good is this community?
Mm-hmm.
Because it does feel like there's this aspect of giving that feedback that's going to set you up for success, of understanding what this covenant is. It is, again, I think the garden did such a good picture of a man and a woman, and that's the start of it. And it's a beautiful picture. But I just think, man, there are a lot of people that I work with that are fighting covenant because of selfishness.
Mm-hmm. I was talking to a young leader the other day, and he was telling me that I'm just surrounded by these people that seem to be just doing great. They're just doing great. Their marriage is doing great, and then one of them just walks away. Just walks away. I can't believe it. It's just happening all over the place. And I said, I don't think that you know your friends very well, because people just don't one day wake up and cash out their life. That is an ongoing process where people don't have hard conversation after hard conversation, and they allow themselves to be content in disconnection. And nobody's asking them the hard questions, because the goal wasn't, we didn't fight. The goal is, are we connected? And I would push back on you and say that you don't have this, tight community. You kept trying, we have a really tight community. Like, no, you don't. Your wheels are falling off. They're not tight. When your wheels fall off, they were not tight. You got to pay attention to what stress and strain and wear and tear actually does to a marriage. So, are you connected? Are you feeling safe with each other? Are you willing to be vulnerable with each other? Are you telling each other what you need? Are you adapting and supplying what each other needs? Those are different questions than, we are so pleasant to be around and we're fun and we don't ever fight, and then one of us just leaves everything one day and nobody can reel us back in.
So the community's part to play there is diving in and asking hard questions. Yeah. When they, because I feel like it's the Holy Spirit that goes, that, is that, how'd that feel? Or, what are you thinking about? It's that the discernment piece is what I'm thinking of in our close knit community. Is that the lean in part?
Yeah, and I know that your quality time, gifts, love language. I know that Ben is an affirmation, touch, love language, and I can sit and be around you for about 30 minutes to 60 minutes, and I can see that you are connected or disconnected. just by the way that you broadcast love or distance.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a good thing to pay attention to.
It is. And so when we're, hanging out as friends and we're living in community together, I can feel it. I can feel like, hey, how you two doing? Oh, we just had a big old gnarly fight last night. We're not really over it yet. We're trying to keep it off everybody. Yeah, well, so what are you going to do about that?
Mm-hmm.
And why don't you text me after you guys get connected today? Or I'm coming over. Yeah. I didn't talk to her about it yet. I just talked to you about it, but you're scaring me. And you know how crazy I get when I get scared.
Christian here. How's my breath? Unless you can smell through your phone, you probably can't give me helpful feedback. But helpful feedback is important. And here's the good news. When it comes to your Kylo questions, you can get helpful, credible feedback straight from the source. That's right. You could submit your questions for Danny and Brittany for them to be answered on the show. All you have to do is go to thekyloshow.com and submit your questions. Go check it out now.
Okay, so Moses allows for divorce, and so they kind of go, hey, and Jesus says, whoa, dog.
Back it on up.
You got a hard heart problem. That's what's happening. That's how that works. And he goes on to say, essentially, that marriage lasts a lifetime.
Mm-hmm.
It's intended to be a covenant that represents the Trinity. Like, the two shall become one, and let no one separate this. Let no one tear this apart. This is designed to last for eternity.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not even sure how that shows up in heaven. I don't get all that.
I don't
on the
either.
other side, like,
we're not there yet.
He's there, she's not. She's what? I don't know. But I don't know. But it blows the disciples away. They're like, whoa, what? How can that be possible that marriage lasts for eternity? But that's the goal. And so we end up with a bunch of designed attacks on marriage to tear it apart. To, the antichrist spirit is anti-family.
Mm-hmm.
It's anti-man, it's anti-woman, it's anti-marriage, it's anti-family. I mean, that's the fingerprints of the accuser, is when Jesus says, this is how it's supposed to be, that narrative that comes against it and tries to tear it apart is the antichrist spirit.
Which is just, again, I feel like the escape for divorce feels like it's always Christians are trying to go back to.
Mm-hmm.
But Moses said, and we're like, but Jesus said.
I know a spiritual leader that got divorced.
Exactly. And it's just so sad to think about, how many times there's a missed opportunity for the covenant that God designed when we break it because of selfishness. Obviously there's other situations that happen, but a lot of divorce is selfishness.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of divorce is that.
Yeah.
And it just rips apart a family, whether they have children in the home or adult children. It still rips apart, and it's painful.
Mm-hmm. And the simple thing is that a divorce starts with a disconnect.
Totally does.
We see the divorce as a problem.
Mm-hmm.
Like, no. The disconnect is the problem.
And the protected disconnect over and over again.
And anything that feeds the idea that disconnection's not that big a deal, disconnection isn't something to take care of, what disconnects you is not a threat.
Mm-hmm.
Living in disconnection is just marriage. All that lying stuff.
Yeah.
You drop into that porn.
Mm-hmm.
Drop into that adulteries,
mm-hmm.
the affairs, and however you decide to have one on Facebook or at the office or wherever. You know, you build into your disconnect a lifestyle of preserving your disconnect. Because if you are going to repent and reconnect, it's going to cost you all of this disconnection activity. So you have to decide, you know, am I literally going to give that up to pursue a protected connection, or am I going to just be nice and friendly and cultivate my disconnecting activities?
I think, you know, again, the women that I'm working with, because I work with a lot more women than I do men, and either their second marriage or they're living disconnected. It's amazing to me the level of extreme like culture that they've created of protecting this disconnect. Like it has become normal now that you talk to me this way, you call me foul names, we don't have any level of intimacy, you can't even compliment me, or everything that I do is to serve only the children and myself because you're the enemy. Now, I'm not saying that in these situations the men are saints, they have their own stuff, but it's just like the lie of let me stay protecting this feels not like a lie to these women. It feels like truth and the only option.
It's a culture.
It's literally like, that's what I feel like I'm always warring against with these ladies is they believe that this is the best and safest option for them is to stay in this powerless state, which I know that our audience is a lot of ladies. You know, we have the just information that says that we've got a lot of ladies listening. So I hear you. I'm here for you. If you need me, go ahead and find me. But, you know, they love Kylo. They love this message. They get the books. They get the all the different series we have. But there's not a transition from hearing it, having value for it, a form of understanding it, and then assertively activating that.
You mean being powerful?
Yeah, even though they're chanting that. So what's the breakdown in the culture of I'm protecting distance because that's my culture, but then inserting Kylo and being like, rah, rah, here I am, hear me roar, but it doesn't actually happen.
I think a lot of people are afraid of the consequences of requiring a respectful, honoring, responsible, loving relationship. When I require that that's where you meet me, you may decide not to. And so I participate in all that you're going to bring, and then I complain about it. Instead of saying, I won't participate there. If you want to be married to me, if you want to be in my future, I'll meet you up here.
Yeah.
But I don't know what you're going to do down there because I'm not living in a rap song. You know, you got this rap music culture that you want to live in. I don't even know how you got there, but I am not doing that. That's powerful. That's assertive. That's telling you what I'm going to do. And most people are afraid of the consequences of they're not going to rise up.
So you keep using the word consequences, which for me is like a negative experience. But the consequence there is that this person doesn't change.
The consequence is that the marriage dissolves.
Okay.
The consequence is that you move out. The consequence is that you expose the broken covenant that you're living in. That's the consequence. When you say, I am not going to participate in disrespect, I'm not going to participate in the disconnection, I'm not going to pretend like it's not here, I'm not going to be dishonoring and
play the game
ugly with you. I'm not going to be quiet when with what I need from you. And I'm not going to attack you. I'm not going to blame you. I'm not going to even complain. I'm just going to let you see me, and I'm going to raise the bar on the relationships around me. And one of those is going to be the relationships with my children.
Right.
Because the bad news is that when you're living in a rap song culture, your children learn that music. They learn the words to the song and they participate. And then you're kind of blown away that your kids are treating you the way that your spouse is, and you don't understand how that happened.
Right.
And you don't like it. And now you want to change it. Well, it's very difficult to have your kids do what you say and not do what you do.
Which is so much of the struggle that I'm faced with in helping these women is getting them to the place of, you say you want this, but I don't believe you. And the risk and the consequences that you're laying out are very real and super painful, and they are devastating. But I also feel like living and participating in that culture of disrespect is just as dangerous.
Yeah, well, it's not a life, It's just you wake up regretting your day, and you haven't even had it yet, but it's just going to be more of the same. And so you've created a life you don't want to live in. And you can blame it on somebody. You can say, well, it's because him, it's because of her, it's because of them, it's because of money, because of this, because of that. No, it's you built this.
Yeah.
You built the today that you live in yesterday. And you build the tomorrow that you're going to live in today, which gives you great option. But what you don't get a different tomorrow if you keep doing today what you've done yesterday.
Yeah.
The definition of insanity, I keep doing the same thing over and over and over, hoping for a better tomorrow. Like, no, it's not. Just doesn't work. Pray though. Pray that God comes in and makes all your decisions for you. Because no, that's not going to happen. God's not going to come in and change the way you conduct your relationships. He's not going to rescue you from your dysfunction. Because even if he did, you'd reproduce it within a month.
Yeah.
And so it's kind of like, oh, God, get me out of debt. I would say, oh, quit living beyond your means and you'll be out of debt. It's like, oh, but so if somebody comes in and pays off all your credit cards, guess what? This time next year, you got a bunch of credit card debt again.
Yeah, I think that's just the war that we have on marriage is the divide, which we talked about before. And, I feel like this place of creating and protecting distance, the manifestation is divorce often, but it starts at distance is what you're saying. And I think the selfishness level underneath that and stubbornness level, of not being ready or willing to confront what that consequences are.
Yeah, it's fear.
Yeah.
It's fear and rebellion, probably. But the biggest problem in the world is a disconnect, whether it's with your child or your spouse or your parents or whatever it is. It sets you up to produce something opposite of love. And so you want to seize the moment there. And I had a buddy that grew up in Colorado. They had turntables where the engine would come onto this big wheel. They'd pick it up and turn it, and it would set it back and start it on another track. And when they were little, they would go out with these 4x4 blocks of wood, and that train would start to move, and they'd throw the block of wood down, and it would stop this train. Just if it went just a few inches, they could stop a locomotive with a 4x4 piece of wood. But if that thing got going about 3 feet, you couldn't stop with a brick wall, right? Because that's what locomotives do. And I think jumping on the disconnect quickly, realizing, this is the biggest problem in the world right here, is I got to turn my heart back to love. I got to deal with me.
Yeah.
I got to send them a message. I love you and the love language, and I got to get that going. I can't let myself get going, because if I let myself get going, I'm offended.
Mm-hmm.
And the Bible says that an offended brother is harder to win than a fortified city.
Mm-hmm.
Like, right. It's exactly right. Once we let ourselves get offended, we are on a march to preserve our distance.
So how do you have to repent from being an offense to restore the disconnect? Is that
that's probably some of the language. I would just say you got to turn your love back on.
okay?
Because you've changed goals. Somebody hurts you, somebody disappoints you, somebody scares you, and you flip your goal to distance.
Yeah. Right.
That's a disconnect. Something happened. There's a misunderstanding. There's disagreement. Whatever it is, I'm protecting myself from you now. That was me. I did that. We still disagree. We still have that situation laying out there. But this conversation and this conversation are completely different conversations.
All right. So move towards stopping that train.
Early.
Have you submitted a question to Danny or Brittany yet? If you haven't, you totally should. Go to thekyloshow.com. When you submit a question, it's actually going to be sent as a voice message. Yeah, so cool, right? That way you can ask your question in your own voice. And don't worry, it's totally safe. When you submit a message, you can listen to it before you submit it, and you can also re-record it if it didn't come out the way that you wanted. Plus, after those messages get submitted, you remain completely anonymous. So there's nothing to lose and everything to gain. Get some good, credible feedback by submitting your question to thekyloshow.com.
So the divorce rate, I think if you were to ask anyone on average, they would say that it's something crazy like 80%. They're scared. I mean, it sounds like that's what the world wants us to think, is that there's no hope for marriage and we're all ending in divorce.
Especially since the shutdowns.
Yes.
Everybody's just coming apart.
So do you have any good news around this idea?
Well, I think that like everything anti-family,
Mm-hmm.
the propaganda, the narrative against marriage is broadcast through a divorce culture. And when something's cultural, it's acceptable. It's common. Like English culture
Mm-hmm.
is okay. We just expect everybody to do it. Divorce cultures is people going into marriage actually have in the back of their minds, it's been programmed in them being a part of this culture, that half of these people, they get married, 1 out of 2.
Yeah.
Like, who would eat at that restaurant? Half the people who eat here die. Like, nobody would go to that restaurant, right? And yet that is your approach to marriage as a young person. Those are the odds that are spit out there. And a lady named Shanti Feldhahn wrote The Good News About Marriage, and she's actually a statistician. And her co-author, I don't remember her name, but they got in and they said, let's go dig through all the statistics and find out where this 50% divorce rate is coming from.
Yeah.
And they went into the statistics that come from the United States Census. Kind of shady statistics there, but they went in and went to reliable sources,
Mm-hmm.
and they tried to find out, where is this half of marriages end in divorce? Where's it coming from? And they ran into something that I think it was in the late 70s. I think it was late 70s is where they discovered that there was a rise in the divorce rate. And experts said, if this continues, it will lead to a 50% divorce rate. It never did. It
Right.
never did. It never even came close to 50%. But it's not a statistic. It's a projection.
Gotcha.
But that projection turned into a pronouncement, which turned into a fact.
I was to say the fact that's what I've always heard is 50%.
Everybody's heard that.
Yeah.
And it's not true at all. It's not true at all. It's actually never been higher than about 30, I think it's 32%. And so you're like, oh my gosh, what in the world? And the truth is that the vast majority of marriages last a lifetime.
Mm. That's good.
Yeah. She found that 73% of the people who ever got married are still married to their first spouse.
See, that statistic isn't out there
No,
to see very
that's
easily.
3 out of 4
Yeah.
are still married to the and if you can lower it even more because those statistics include widowing. So one of the spouse, the way you got out of your first marriage is you died. It's hard to stay married to a dead person. But that is an ended marriage and somebody's still alive.
Mm-hmm.
So that is piled into was married, no longer married.
Okay.
So it's stunning that less than 1 in 4 is the real, and we have half. We're telling everybody that 1 in 2.
Well, I think the other thing that I keep hearing is that, I heard that the Christian divorce rate is the same as the non-Christian divorce rate.
Mm-hmm.
That's the other thing that I've heard many times.
Yeah.
I've heard it's 50%. I've heard now that there's less people getting married.
That's true, I think.
I don't know the exact numbers on that, but it is an interesting breakdown of, again, just the attack on marriage is that there's less people doing it, but the statistic of Christian and non-Christian are the exact same. Like that's a big one, which, I think in the Christian world, we're supposed to be known for marriage covenant. And if we're the same as the world, that's what seems terrifying.
One of the things that they researched and discovered was that there are like 3 characteristics that would dramatically impact your success rate in a marriage. And it was if you get married in your mid-20s or later,
Mm-hmm.
you go to college, you don't live together before you get married, and you go to church, basically, you worship together, you have a 5 to 10% divorce rate. So they knock that down, 1 in 10 with just meeting some pay attentions.
Yeah.
Build this into the way you move forward. Don't live together. Living together just lowers the bar on the respect level.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, I'm not going to commit. Well, I'm not going to require that you bring that much respect.
Right.
I'm not going to bring any provision or protection or commitment. Okay, well, I don't require that. Well, that's a bummer. What do you require? Actually, nothing. I give sex away. And then, boom, you're left on the beach. And this relationship moves on without you. And you as a woman just gave what you bring with you is you bring yourself, your heart, your vulnerability, your body. You bring that to the man who says, I will die for you.
Yeah.
And then those two go on to live a lifetime together. Or you just shred that and you end up with broken people who then go on and don't trust, don't offer vulnerability, don't know how to really build a healthy soul tie with someone. And then they're surprised when their marriage ends up on a reef.
Yeah.
Like, okay, this is the product of brokenness, is broken people who have given away the best parts of them, then decide to get married for whatever reason. I don't even know why they get to decide to get married at that point. But you said earlier that less people are deciding to get married. And of course, why would you get married knowing that half the people that do, probably worse than that now, and why would I? It's just a piece of paper. Who cares?
Well, I think one of my questions with that is, if the statistics that she's bringing us isn't as bad as we thought it was, for one, so that's good news. Why are the 80% of people that are happy in marriage not singing about it?
Hardly anybody is taking the time to announce how happy they are with something. Customer service at Verizon is not full of people who say, I just wanted to call in and say thank you for this service. It's going so great right now. I just really appreciate all that you guys have done. That's not what that person's trained to deal with. Mm-hmm. So it's the 20% of the people that
are the loudest.
Have 80% of the communication. So it is tough to get happy people to broadcast their happiness. It was just, it's just meeting the expectations. It's and then it's not like 100% smooth ride, right? It's like work.
Yeah, it is work.
It's work, and so you're like, yeah, we're doing good right now. Mm-hmm. But if we hit a disconnect, oh man, there aren't many things that hurt like that. So, but we're doing good.
So, I mean, I'm thinking just some of the breakdown that you've displayed as far as people not getting married. You choose to live together. You choose to not be in community together. Just some different parts that kind of lead towards maybe divorce. It sounds like that community piece is really crucial, which we talked about before. But putting yourself in an environment where community is going to point out when your selfishness is on display, and really kind of knowing what you're supposed to be doing, what you're called to be doing when it comes to marriage, like that you're the sexy butler. We talked about that before. Like that's your job, that's your role. And I think this idea where I know that we talk about love languages from Gary Chapman, and we say that I love you is one of the best kept secrets. It feels like I'm happily married is a secret of this culture.
Obviously, 80% of marriages are happy. Mm-hmm. People are, when they fill out the surveys, 80% of them said happy to very happy.
Yeah.
Like, oh gosh.
So the roles that we could change as a Christian culture to fight against what the statistics that are filling this next generation that aren't getting married would be to start communicating with clarity and loudly, the opposite of the Verizon call-in customer service, but putting on display that there's happiness and there's fruit, there's benefit. I feel like that's such an unclear perspective for this generation that's choosing not to get married, is that there's such a benefit within getting married that adds to your life rather than keeps you from something.
Mm-hmm. It's confusing, I think, at this point where you are trained to believe that marriage is about personal benefit. Mm-hmm. Like the reason that you would get married is because it's an upgrade in your life. Why would you pay the extra on this subscription to get that? Well, because it's going to add so much to you. So people approach marriage like it's some sort of enhancement to their pleasure-seeking life.
So it's still selfish.
It's very selfish. And so I'm looking around for who might add to my amazingness and to my experience that I'm having that I've created for myself? Would you like to come and join with my amazing experience that I've created? All I require is control of you.
Right.
And it goes horrible. Like, no kidding. Yeah, because you shouldn't be Lord and master of your destiny and hers or his. Mm-hmm. So marriage is not finding someone to enhance your life. Marriage very much is someone that you are willing to lay your life down to protect and to become one with into eternity as you follow Christ.
Mm-hmm. And that is the hope that we're looking for, is that you can see this marriage covenant as the beauty that God designed it to be, which is that you're laying your life down for somebody.
Which brings out the best in you.
Yes, it does. Completely. So I think, as we wrap up this last episode, if you're happily married, please tell the world. Please just go and tell the world how much you love your spouse and how happy you are. And, sure, there's a reality of hard days, but, I look at my life and I asked Ben the other day, I said, have you ever thought about if I died?
Oh, honey, you can't.
I know. We were watching a movie, and so I asked him. I asked him. I said, have you ever thought about this? He goes, I have thought about it so many times. I said, what would you do? He goes, I don't get past, I've thought about it. I don't want to think about it anymore. And I said, I was having the same thought, like, oh my gosh, like, I don't even know where I would begin, because I feel like the oneness that we have is, yes, we're two individual people, but there's this unity around our whole family. And so that's what I want the world to think about, is like, to think of my life without Ben feels so far away from anything I could ever
so unfulfilling.
Yes, it feels like it takes away everything that is joyful, funny. I mean, we were laughing last night because I get on these rants and he always laughs at me. He says I should film you because I'm just obnoxious, which you may see somewhat, but he gets the most of it. But I just think that there's just such this beauty in my best friend,
safety,
that I get to do my everything with. And I think that's the part of, if you are really embracing an marriage and this covenant and this oneness, you are partnered with your best friend, and that's an amazing experience.
Yep.
So again, I'm trying to build whole, healthy families. Ben's trying to build it. We want you to try and build it. So if you're happy in your marriage, just walk up to a stranger and tell them how happy you are. I bet you it will make their day if you talk about something good. And marriage is a good thing to talk about.
Building whole, healthy families.
That's it.
Save the world.
Let's do it.
Thanks for listening. Join us next week when Danny and Brittany talk about who you are, why you're here, and what you need to be doing with your life. Never miss a Kylo Show by subscribing to Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or watch us on our YouTube channel. And don't forget to submit your questions to thekyloshow.com. The Kylo Show is produced by Allie Armerding, co-produced by Ashley Beck, Anna Hill, Leah Alexander, and Sherry Silk. Engineered and edited by Taylor Silk, and show promoter, me, Christian Zamora. Thank you so much for listening. We'll see you next week.